Okay, Doodlebugs, this is Miss Gina History Club, and I wanted to talk about Christopher Columbus this week because he is one of our early American explorers, and we're going to talk about that's part of what we do in history is learn about how those early folks influenced how we live today and things that are happening today. And because it is the second week in October, we're going to talk about Christopher Columbus, who he was and why did he sail to our continent, how long ago did he sail to the Bahamas, which is part of our continent, about how many sailors were on each ship, why did he call the natives Indians, why do we celebrate Columbus Day close to October 12th each year, and would you like to be an explorer? We're going to talk about that a little more in class. All right. Let's learn about Christopher Columbus. Clap your hands if you have ever heard the name Christopher Columbus. Now, I know you've already heard it about 4 times, so you should be clapping. Christopher Columbus was a very famous explorer. An explorer is someone who travels to new places where most people have not gone yet. That is what an explorer is. Now, there were no airplanes, there were no cars, trucks, or buses. There were no trains. Way back when Christopher Columbus decided he was going to do a little exploring or checking out places that no one else had traveled. Christopher Columbus lived more than 500 years ago. Yes, guys, he's older than Miss Gina. In those days, it was harder to travel from one place to another because we did not have all of these modes of transportation. We only had certain ones. If you take a look here, these are the ways that they traveled years ago. Travelers they used their feet. They used maybe an animal. Remember, we talked last week about in history about horses pulling chariots long ago. They also used oxen or donkeys or something like that. That's how they got around. Or they traveled, like Mr. Columbus did, by ship. All right. Now, the reason Christopher Columbus decided he needed to get out and explore a little bit is people who lived here in Europe all the way over here. And if you look right here, you will see where Miss G is putting her pointer. That is the area that we've been talking about. See the boot right there? All right. People who lived in Europe, they wanted spices, silk, and gold from people who lived on the other side of the world, very far away, called Asia. So Christopher said, I think I've got this. But the problem was it took days and days to travel across the land, through deserts and over mountains, to get the fine things that people wanted from Asia. That took a very, very long time, and it was a very difficult trip. So Christopher started tapping his head, and he thought, I think I might have an idea. It took a long time for old ships to sail around Africa to get to Asia too. Now, if you look down here, right down here, this big blob of land just to the south is Africa. And it took quite a long time to get all the way around that. So that was not a good way to solve the problem either, because the longer the ships were gone, they were more likely to not return. So he kept thinking. He was a sailor and a map maker. And those are two good things to be when you want to travel all the way across the world. He thought that the earth was round. Most people at that time thought it was flat. He thought if a ship sailed west into the Atlantic Ocean, it might be a shortcut to Asia, because if the earth was round, he would just go around in a circle and find his way on the other side. So that's why Mr. Columbus decided he just might try it. The king and queen of Spain, because remember, Christopher Columbus was from Spain, gave Christopher Columbus 3 ships and 90 sailors so that he could try to find a shorter way to sail to Asia. So 90 sailors and 3 ships. That's about 30 sailors per ship. The Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria were his 3 ships. He and his crew set sail with the blessing of the King and Queen of Spain. Columbus and his crew left Spain in August, about the time you started school this year, but it was 1492, so it was a long time ago. They sailed for many, many days. Think about it, from the time school started, about around the time school started, until this week is when they finally landed. That is a long time to be on a ship. They sailed, no one saw land. Some sailors got scared and they wanted to go back home. I think I might have too. You have to remember, guys, this was not a cruise ship with lots of lights and fun things to do and all of that. This was a cargo ship, and there was no electricity. So the only lights they even had at night were candles and lanterns, and they had to be very careful because they were on wooden ships. And we know what can happen to wood when it gets too close to fire, don't we? Finally, they saw land on October the 12th. Remember, this is about how long it was from the time school started until now. Christopher Columbus and some of his sailors rowed a boat to an island. They got off the ship. They couldn't dock the ship. It was too big to dock it right at the island. So they had to get into a rowboat, and they rowed to the island. Columbus thought he landed on an island in the Indies in Asia, which is way over here on the right side, all the green. That's where he thought he landed. But he didn't. He had actually landed on an island that is now part of the Bahamas. He was very confused. He thought he was in one place, but it was actually very far away in another. So he actually landed in the Bahamas. Wouldn't you love to go to the Bahamas right now? Miss Gina's been there one time, and it is just beautiful. At that time in history, people on this side of the world, now remember, this side of the world did not know that there were people and land on the other side of the world. They didn't even realize that. So they were on this side of the world. They were up here, again, right north of Africa. Remember, we've talked about where they were. Spain was right there. And he sailed all the way around, and he ended up here. And he thought up here, he thought he was way far away from that. So he was a little bit confused. But they didn't know there were people. Columbus thought he was in the Indies again, so he called the people on the island Indians. That is where the original term came from. Columbus called it Indians, or that's what they say anyway. That's what historians teach us. Columbus called the island San Salvador and said that the land belonged to Spain. He claimed the land for Spain. But again, he thought he was in Asia, but he wasn't. He was in the Bahamas. And he was calling everybody Indians. Christopher Columbus explored the other islands too. Then he went back to Spain. He explored and saw things that he had never seen in Spain. So it was very fascinating to him. And he had scientists along with him, and they were collecting bugs that they had never seen and little small animals maybe, just trying to figure out everything they could and learn everything about this strange new land. Columbus told the king when he went back to Spain and the queen about the islands he found. Everyone was so excited to hear about Columbus's adventures. Columbus traveled across the Atlantic Ocean 4 times to explore the New World. He always believed that the land he explored was part of Asia. He never knew that he wasn't even in Asia where he'd set out to go. Isn't that funny? Poor thing. Now this is North America up top. This is South America on the bottom of this globe. In the years after Columbus's visit, other explorers came to the New World. They learned and they figured out that the land was not part of Asia. The land was, again, North America and South America. That's where Christopher Columbus was exploring the entire time, and he didn't know it. Some say that Christopher Columbus discovered America, but he didn't. He really didn't. And you're like, what? Well, think about it. There were already lots of people living in America when Columbus came. We call these people Native Americans because they are the original Americans. Columbus did help people on both sides of the world, though, learn about other lands because these were lands that they didn't even know existed. Today we celebrate Columbus Day to remember Christopher Columbus because if he wouldn't have come over and explored the New World, as he called it, others would have never come and we might not be here today. In the USA, That's the United States of America. Columbus Day is on the second Monday in October. This is Tuesday when we'll have class on Tuesday, but we celebrate this the day before class. It's close to October 12th, the day when Christopher Columbus first landed in the New World, but it's not always exactly on the 12th because of the way the calendar works. Some cities have a parade on Columbus Day. That's how we celebrate Columbus Day today. The post office, the banks, and some offices like city offices, they're closed on Columbus Day. But guess what? Most kids still have school on Columbus Day. Sorry, guys. Lavka is not closed today. People in other countries around the world also celebrate Christopher Columbus on a special day in October. Now, of course, Spain celebrates, Argentina, Mexico, Italy. All of those places also celebrate Christopher Columbus because he was very famous and very, very smart. Christopher Columbus is a very important man in history. Now, I want you to think about what you have learned about him. Okay? Think about what was Christopher Columbus and why did he sail to our continent, or who was he? How long ago did he sail to the Bahamas? I'll give you a clue. It's in the hundreds place. About how many sailors were on each ship? Why did he call the natives Indians? Why do we celebrate Columbus Day close to October 12th? And most important thing, would you like to be an explorer? Now, we are going to go in, when you come to class this week, we're going to do some Columbus Day activities, and then we're going to go in breakout rooms, and we're going to do a little writing activity. So I would love, love, love to have you join me. Please come to class in History Club. It's so much fun, and I love having you. So log in. Check me out. Let's do our activities together for Columbus Day. And I have a special activity that I'm going to send out to you. Only the kids who come to class that you will love. You're going to create your own ship. So join me. Can't wait to see you.